LA Sheriff's deputy shoot at dog, firing bullets that bounce and kill teen, officials say. This is a headline from a news outlet from an incident that happened yesterday. Yesterday was June 22nd, 2017. A 17-year-old boy in Palmdale, California, was shot and killed by the police that were responding to a noise complaint. I saw this on social media. I immediately clicked on the link, and this happens right after the Philando Castile verdict where the officer was acquitted. This is right on the same news cycle as that happening. So, you're kind of numb with anger after all these, one after the other, these police killings. And so I took a breath and I said, I'm going to evaluate the language of how this news story is reported. And then as the story develops, let's see if there's any slant or skew for or against the police. And it was very interesting what I found. The very first article that I saw referred to the 17-year-old child whose name is Armando Garcia-Muro. Rest in peace, young fella. Referred to him as a suspect. And at first you might think, well, that's just a catch-all term that describes anybody that's engaged with a police incident. But I look at it as much more devious than that. I think you're planting in the mind of the reader that the shooting was justified, when obviously I don't feel that that's the case. And once the facts come out, if the facts come out by any reliable source, I'm very interested to see if this officer is found at fault. I looked at all the local news coverage on this case, CBS, NBC, ABC, KTLA, all the major news outlets. And what I see here, deadly ricochet. Okay, that's their headline. That's their to pull you in to watch the story. Deadly ricochet. So they're calling it an accident, a tragic mistake. That the officers were shooting at a dog that had bit one of the officers. We don't know what order this took place, but they're shooting at the dog, and they claim that a bullet ricochets off the driveway and strikes the child in the chest, and he died later at the hospital. He succumbed to his injuries. Now, when the mother was interviewed, she said that the child was struck twice in the chest. Now, I'm thinking, if an officer, say he's between 5'6" and 6 feet tall, and he's shooting a gun at a dog that's on the ground, how in the world can it bounce off of the ground all the way up to hit a 17-year-old child in the chest who's probably average height between 5'6" and 6 foot? The trajectory doesn't make sense, especially when they say that he's 40 feet away. So I wasn't there. I didn't see this take place. All I'm doing is looking at the language that the reporters are choosing to use to report this case, and the language that the officers are using to describe the events that took place. I'm not anti-police. I'm not anti-anything. But what I am is very interested to see if the language used in these stories affects the public perception, which affects how the verdicts shake out if there is a trial, if they decide they are or aren't going to charge. These things happen very quickly. And the way the news media works, the first person to report on it basically wins. They get the most money from advertisers because they get the most views on their page. Okay? So there's very little incentive to get these stories right. All the incentive is to be first. And that's something that I think needs to be changed. I really don't want to get into breaking down the facts and who's right and who's wrong, but I really want people to just think about what they're reading. And if you're reading a story that a friend shared, look back and trace the source and really get the eyewitness account to what happened and see if you can trust that eyewitness before forming your opinion.